Guys. Have you experienced being in a situation where you're watching someone else's life unfold and it hits so close to home that you have to pause and just sit with it for a minute? That's exactly what's happening right now with Pearl and Maurice, and honestly, the internet isn't just gossiping, people are genuinely hurting for her. Because this isn't about scandal or drama or some messy public breakup with receipts flying everywhere. This is about something quieter, something more painful, something that millions of people have lived through but rarely talk about. It's about loving someone for years, showing up consistently, being their cheerleader, their support system, their constant, and then one day realizing that maybe, just maybe, you've been waiting for a future that was never actually coming. Have you ever felt like you were auditioning for a role you thought you already had? Like you were proving yourself worthy of something that should have already been yours? That's the energy people are picking up on, and it's breaking hearts across timelines because we've all either been there or know someone who has. Some love stories don't explode in flames with dramatic exits and public callouts. Those are actually the easier ones to process because at least there's clarity in the chaos. But the ones that fade quietly, the ones that dissolve through unanswered questions and avoided conversations, those are the ones that haunt you. Those are the ones where you lie awake at 3 in the morning replaying every moment, every conversation, every time you convinced yourself that patience was a virtue and that good things come to those who wait. Right now, as people watch Pearl and Maurice's story unfold, or not unfold, depending on how you look at it, there's this collective heaviness settling in. Because what we are potentially witnessing isn't a dramatic ending. It's something worse. It's the slow, agonizing realization that you might have invested years into something that was never going to give you what you needed. And that kind of heartbreak doesn't announce itself loudly. It creeps in quietly, settles into your bones, and changes you in ways you don't even notice until much later. Here's what people have been piecing together, and honestly, the more you look at it, the more your heart sinks. This connection between Pearl and Maurice isn't some new flame that burned too bright too fast. This isn't a whirlwind romance that imploded under pressure. Fans believe this relationship, whatever form it took, has been building for close to a decade. 10 years. Let that sink in for a second. 10 years of showing up, of being present, of investing emotional energy into someone. 10 years is longer than some marriages. It's enough time to build entire lives, careers, families. It's enough time to know someone deeply, to grow with them, to become woven into the fabric of their existence. And according to people who've been watching closely, Pearl has been that constant presence in Maurice's life for all that time. She's promoted his movies when he needed the visibility. She's celebrated his wins publicly when it mattered. She's been the kind of partner, whether official or unofficial, that most people would be lucky to have. The kind who shows up not just when it's convenient or beneficial, but consistently, genuinely, wholeheartedly. But here's where the story gets uncomfortable, where people start shifting in their seats because they recognize this pattern all too well. That same energy, that public support, that visible investment, it doesn't seem to flow back her way. And look, we're not in their private conversations. We don't know what happens behind closed doors. But what people can see, what's visible to everyone watching, is a noticeable imbalance. Pearl shows up for Maurice in ways that are public and consistent. Maurice's reciprocation, at least from what fans can observe, feels muted, unclear, inconsistent. And whether they were officially boyfriend and girlfriend with labels and anniversaries, or whether they existed in that complicated space of emotional intimacy without formal commitment, many people believe the connection was deep. It was serious. It mattered. You don't maintain something for 10 years if it doesn't matter. You don't keep showing up for someone who means nothing to you. So whatever they had, it was real enough to last, real enough to invest in, real enough to build hopes around. When love stretches across years without a clear trajectory, without conversations about the future, without tangible signs of progression, confusion doesn't just creep in, it moves in permanently and redecorates. And this is where Pearl's situation becomes painfully relatable to so many people, especially women who found themselves in similar positions. There comes a moment, usually after years of patience and hoping and convincing yourself that timing is everything, where you have to ask the question that terrifies you. The question you've been avoiding because you're scared of the answer. The question that feels like it might shatter everything if you voice it out loud. But you ask it anyway because you can't keep living in limbo, can't keep building a future in your head that might not exist in reality. Fans believe Pearl reached that moment. That she finally asked Maurice, in whatever way she asked, the question that's been sitting heavy on her heart: where is this going? What are we doing? What does our future look like? And that question, simple as it sounds, has the power to shake any relationship to its foundation because it demands honesty when ambiguity has been easier. Waiting is romantic at the beginning, isn't it? When you're first falling for someone and you tell yourself that good things take time, that love doesn't follow a schedule, that you're building something worth waiting for. Those first couple of years, waiting feels like anticipation, like you're both walking towards something beautiful. But after years of loyalty, after showing up again and again, after making someone a priority in your life while wondering if you're even an option in theirs, waiting stops feeling hopeful. It starts to hurt. It starts to feel less like patience and more like you're being strung along. And here's the thing that people are recognizing in Pearl's situation: she wasn't asking for the world. She wasn't demanding grand gestures or luxury or some fairy tale proposal. She was asking for what anyone deserves after investing a decade into someone: commitment, direction, clarity. Just knowing where she stands. Just understanding if the future she's been imagining is one he's imagining too. That's not unreasonable. That's not pressure. That's just wanting to know if you're wasting your time or building towards something real. Maurice's response, as people are reading the situation, wasn't cruel or harsh. He didn't lash out or blame her for asking. But here's what might be even worse: it also wasn't comforting. There was no promise offered, no timeline suggested, no reassurance given. Just boundaries and what feels like emotional distance. Just a kind of withdrawal that leaves you feeling more alone than if he'd never been there at all. And silence after long-term love, that specific kind of silence where someone won't answer the questions that matter most, can feel worse than outright rejection. Because rejection at least gives you something to process, something to grieve, something to move on from. But silence. Silence keeps you stuck. It keeps you wondering if you misread everything, if you're being impatient, if you should wait just a little longer because maybe he just needs more time. Silence is emotional purgatory, and it's exhausting. 10 years. We keep coming back to that number because it's staggering. 10 years means shared memories that span different chapters of your lives. It means you've grown together, changed together, weathered storms together. It means sacrifices made, compromises reached, emotional investments that can't be quantified. It means inside jokes and shared shorthand and knowing each other in ways that new people in your life never could. 10 years is not casual. It's not something you just walk away from without it leaving a mark. And when people look at Pearl now, they see someone who appears quieter, more reflective. Not dramatic or bitter or lashing out for attention. Just tired. Emotionally exhausted in that specific way that comes from giving and giving and giving while wondering if it's ever going to come back to you. And so many women watching this unfold felt that exhaustion in their souls because they've been exactly where she is. They've been the ones supporting and promoting and showing up and waiting, only to realize that maybe their loyalty was never going to be rewarded with the commitment they deserved. People started connecting dots that, when laid out, paint a sobering picture. No proposal after all this time. Little public affirmation of the relationship, at least not in the way she affirms him. Emotional withdrawal just when clarity was needed most. And look, everyone moves at their own pace. Everyone has their own timeline for commitment. But there's a difference between moving carefully and never moving at all. There's a difference between wanting to be sure and using caution as an excuse to avoid making a decision. And what people are seeing in Maurice's actions, or lack thereof, is someone who values his peace, his readiness, his ability to move at exactly his own pace. Which is valid. Which is his right. But here's the uncomfortable truth: after many years with someone who's been nothing but loyal and supportive, that level of caution starts to look less like wisdom and more like he's just not choosing her. Not because she's done anything wrong, not because she's lacking in any way, but simply because he doesn't want to. And that realization, when it hits, is devastating. The issue doesn't seem to be a lack of love, and that's what makes this whole thing so complicated and painful. People watching this don't think Maurice is a villain who never cared. They think he probably does love Paul in whatever capacity he's capable of loving someone. But love without direction, love without intention, love that exists in this comfortable limbo where no hard decisions have to be made, that kind of love eventually becomes its own form of hurt. Because love alone isn't enough. You also need vision. You need partnership. You need someone who's willing to build a future with you, not just exist in a pleasant present that never progresses. Time, as they say, demands answers. And when those answers don't come, when years pass and you're still in the same undefined space you were in the beginning, love stops being comforting. It starts being painful. It starts feeling like a weight you're carrying alone. Paul's question, the one people believe she finally asked, wasn't really just about timelines or next steps. It was deeper than that. It was about her value. It was about her place in his life and his future. It was about whether she's someone he's building toward or someone he's just comfortable having around until something better or more convenient comes along. And not getting a clear answer to that question, not being met with enthusiasm or certainty or even just honesty about where his head is at, that absence of response becomes its own kind of answer. It tells you that you're not the priority you thought you were. It tells you that you've been more invested than they have. It tells you that maybe you've been writing a story in your head where you're the leading lady, but in their version, you're just a supporting character. Heartbreak doesn't always arrive in one catastrophic moment. Sometimes it grows slowly, building through delays and avoided conversations and questions that never get answered. It accumulates in all the times you made yourself small to accommodate their uncertainty, in all the moments you convinced yourself to be patient when what you really needed was progression, in all the ways you twisted yourself into understanding their perspective while your own needs went unmet. And that slow-building heartbreak is what people are recognizing in this situation. They're watching someone potentially realize, in real time, that the future she's been patiently waiting for might not exist. And that's a specific kind of pain that doesn't scream, it whispers. It sits quiet in your chest and makes everything feel heavier. Many people believe that after 10 solid years together, clarity shouldn't be a controversial request. It should just exist. You should know by year 5, honestly, whether someone is your future or just your present. You should be able to answer basic questions about where the relationship is going without needing to create distance or avoid the conversation. And the fact that clarity seems absent here, that Paul apparently had to ask for something that should have been freely given by now, that's what's bothering people. Because it suggests that Maurice has been comfortable in the ambiguity. That the undefined nature of their relationship has worked for him, even if it's been slowly killing her. And there's something particularly painful about realizing that your partner's comfort zone is your source of anxiety and confusion. Love without direction will eventually become painful. That's not an opinion, it's just a fact that anyone who's lived through it can confirm. You can care about someone deeply, genuinely, truly, and still hurt them by refusing to give them clarity about where they stand. You can love someone and still make them feel unchosen by never actually choosing them in the ways that matter. And nobody has to be the villain in this story for it to be tragic. One person asked a reasonable question after years of investment. The other person, for whatever reason, couldn't or wouldn't answer it in a way that provided comfort or clarity. That's not necessarily malicious. It's just sad. It's two people who may love each other existing on completely different timelines with completely different visions of what they are building together. Or not building, as the case may be. The lesson people are taking from this, the wisdom being shared in comments and group chats and late-night conversations, is simple but crucial: ask your questions early. Don't wait a decade to find out if someone sees a future with you. Don't make yourself small and patient and understanding to the point where your own needs become invisible. Don't invest years into someone who won't even give you the basic respect of clarity. Time is an investment, maybe the most valuable one we have, and every investment deserves a return. Not in some transactional sense, but in the basic sense that if you're giving someone your time, your energy, your loyalty, your love, you deserve to know that it's going somewhere. That it means something. That you're building toward a future together, not just existing in a comfortable present that benefits them more than it benefits you. This love story, whatever it is or was or might become, seems to be standing at a crossroads right now. One path leads to clarity, to honest conversations, to difficult decisions, to someone finally stepping up and either committing or letting go. The other path leads to heartbreak, to more silence, more avoidance, more years lost waiting for something that's never going to materialize. And the devastating truth is that silence, that continued avoidance of the hard conversations, will decide which path this takes. Because doing nothing is still making a choice. Saying nothing is still sending a message. And if Maurice continues to respond to Pearl's need for clarity with distance and boundaries and emotional withdrawal, well, that's going to tell her everything she needs to know, even if he never says the words out loud. Here's what we know for sure: watching someone else go through this kind of slow-motion heartbreak hits different because it's so familiar. It's not explosive or scandalous enough to dismiss as drama, but it's real enough and raw enough to make you examine your own relationships and ask yourself the hard questions. Are you waiting for someone who's waiting for you too? Or are you the only one building toward a future while they're content to just exist in the present? Have you asked for clarity, or are you avoiding the question because you're scared of the answer? Pearl's story, whether it ends in heartbreak or somehow finds its way to resolution, is a mirror for so many people's lived experiences. And if you're watching this and feeling something stir in your chest, maybe it's time to have that conversation you've been avoiding. Maybe it's time to ask for what you deserve. Drop a comment if this hit home for you, if you've been there, if you're there right now. And if you believe that love should come with clarity, not just comfort, hit that subscribe button because we are going to keep talking about the real, messy, complicated truth about relationships that nobody else wants to address. Guys, if you have reached here, drop a 100 likes, share, subscribe and comment. One love and peace out.